All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chapter 9, Communism and Postcommunism. I'm going to try not to make this video 30 minutes long like the last couple ones have been, okay? So we'll try to go through this as fast as we possibly can, but I probably will be going on some rants once again. Here are our key concepts for this chapter. Now, obviously, we're going to be talking a lot about Karl Marx, okay? Because all of our ideas are going to be stemming from him, okay? So humans create a value of labor, value through labor, and their surplus value of that labor. Okay, under capitalism, you get the bourgeois and the proletariat. Okay, so you have the rich, you have the poor. Okay, and obviously in politics, there's an expression of economic inequality, and Marx argued that we want to make sure if people are equal at the economic level, we will have true equality in the world. Okay, or at least within the government. Okay. Now, throughout human history, we human history is shaped by structures, not by individuals. Okay, so some of these Marxist terms that we'll go over: base. Okay, base is just going to be your economic system, technology plus class relations. Superstructure, non-economic institution. This is going to be your religion, your culture, your civil society. Okay. False conscious. Peoples misunderstand their exploitation because they buy into this structure. You buy into a capitalist market. You buy into a specific government or a democracy. Okay. Now, let's go ahead. Let's keep moving forward. Once again, I'm going to try to go through this. I'm going to try to get this video in 15 minutes. Okay. Now, dialectical materialism. Okay. Here's some more Marxist terms. Okay. This history moves through revolution, not through gradual evolution. Okay. So changes happen because people are revolting, they're protesting, and they're making major systematic change. Okay. Now, there's the dictatorship of the proletariat. Okay. There's a temporary period after capitalism is overthrown. Remaining capitalist institutions are eliminated and they're going to be swapped out with government ran institutions. Okay. And the final stage is obviously going to be communism. Okay. This is going to be the stateless, classless, equal society based on cooperation. And remember, in a perfect world, this will people will be, if they're equal at this economic level, they will feel the same sense of equality within that country. Now, a couple more Marxist terms. What is the proletariat? It's going to be the working class. What is your I don't know how to say that word. That's crazy. I'm not even going to say it right now. This is going to be the property owning class. And then the vanguard of the proletariat is going to be the elite party, which must lead the revolution because the workers suffer from this false conscience. Also, the workers are always going to outnumber the elite. Okay. Now, Marx's phases of human history. Okay, he says it begins with feudalism, then it switches to the capitalist democracy. After that, there's a dictatorship that is taking place, which withers away the state, and then leads to us going into this communist utopia. Essentially, Marx thinks that as society goes along, it will always lead back to communism because people will realize that there's inequality and there's injustice that is present within whatever form of government there is. And he believes that communism or socialism is always going to be the answer. Okay. And here's why Marx expected capitalism to collapse. Okay. Remember, our capitalist economy depends on competition within the marketplace. And what happens when you have a marketplace that is full of monopolies? Kind of like what we're seeing somewhat in America. Okay. Um, there's going to be a wealth concentration, and that top 1% will continue to get richer. What ends up happening? The working class or that middle class ends up shrinking. And then people are kind of sitting around like, what are we doing working for these capitalist markets? Why are we paying into this? We receive no benefit at all. They're flying on private jets. They get to live in these big homes, and I'm living check to check. Can't even afford rent. Barely afford groceries. Can't put gas in the car. Can't afford proper health care. What do I get out of this? Why am I feeding into this type of system? Okay. The next thing is going to be technology. It reduces the amount of workers needed. And with companies, one of the main goals is to do what? Make money. And if people are seen as an expense that can be cut out, you will cut them out of the job market because you don't want to give them proper benefits, retirement, healthcare, or you don't want to pay them a higher wage. Remember, the robot and the AI cannot call out of work because they're overstimulated, because they are having a rough day. Okay. Now, Workers become alienated and they gain class consciousness. They're very aware that there's a separation between them and the top 1%, or there's different levels. They're not as prosperous as they think they are. Okay. And then revolution starts to spread. There's an upset generation or working class people because of this. Now, was Marx wrong? Okay. I don't say that he's entirely wrong. And this is hard for me to admit because I think that capitalism is the correct answer here. Okay. Now, I will say this: technology will replace certain sectors. AI will replace certain types of jobs and careers that people are going to enter in. But as civilizations develop, it's going to lead to us leaving these lesser sectors. So this less skillful work can be replaced and we can start to be a little bit more advanced as a country. Okay. So am I saying that this won't lead to people losing their jobs? No, it will. Okay. But here's what has to happen. People need to be able to adapt with the times rather than we're going to live in this traditional type of way. Okay. So, yes, AI has failed so far when it comes to replacing jobs. We've seen companies have to rehire individuals because it turns out AI cannot fix all of our problems yet. Eventually, it will, and people will have to enter newer types of careers. But technology, I don't think, will eliminate jobs. It will create a new area of work. Okay. So that is where there's going to be a transfer. Okay. So I think Marx is probably wrong on that standpoint. Okay. Technology doesn't reduce workers, it changes the work that is done. Okay. But obviously now people need to gain new skills, and this is going to replace certain sectors. Okay. Now, Vladimir Lenin's Mao's adaptations of Karl Marx's viewpoint. Okay. So this is going to be non-industrial societies. There was a vanguard that Lenin had. The elite party leads the revolution. And Mao, there was obviously these peasants, which were the revolutionary base. I always like looking at all these old leaders. They have such fucking cool pictures. Like, you cannot tell me that maybe this is just the life of being a dictator. Okay. Being authoritarian, knowing that your country is starving and you're just reaping all the benefits of the only few people reaping all the benefits of living in this society. But I think their pictures they're so much better than American like president pictures. But it's probably because we're advanced democracy. There's people struggling, so you could tell that these people are super elevated in comparison to everybody else. Okay, but once again, I'm not over here saying, oh wow, they. Yeah, I'm not trying to defend them. Now the Communist Party structure. Okay, there's going to be a general secretary. General secretary. This is going to be the true national leader. They will have an executive cabinet for the most part that is called the Politburo. Then their central committee is going to be their legislative style body. Not really going to have real elections for the most part. They're going to be like sham ones. They're people that are placed there. I like to view these as like communists, almost like an oligarchy. Okay. And then they're going to have sleeper cells, or they're just going to have cells. They're going to have people monitoring workplaces, neighborhoods to make sure that they eliminate any threats of revolution, or they want to keep everyone in check on the same exact page. Okay. Now, these cells will be within the country. If you guys don't know what sleeper cells are, that is when you put these agents to monitor other areas of the world, sometimes neighboring countries, or other times it can be um, countries that maybe conflict with the values. Okay. So, like, during the Red Scare, there was a fear that there was a bunch of sleeper cell agents within America. And there's a really good video you guys should watch. His name is, I'll show it to you guys at the end of the PowerPoint. Actually, I'll show you guys right now before I forget. There is a guy, um, let me pull it up really quick. Yuri Bezmenov, okay? He was a Soviet, um, came from the Soviet Union. There's a very good interview with him. It's a few hours long. This one right here. It is the four stages. I don't want this to play. The four stages of ideological subversion. You guys should watch this. Very interesting video. Yes, is it an hour and 21 minutes? I think it is well worth it. But I will probably link this for you guys because it is very interesting and it goes over how these cells or how the Communist Party was trying to destabilize America. And there's these different stages that they had they would put into play to destabilize a country. And if you look at what America looks like right now, maybe they have had some type of success. Maybe. Okay, remember this video is over 40 years old. He talked about where America would face some shortcomings, but maybe that is because Karl Marx was actually right. So if we go back and we look at some of these things, maybe he expected capitalism to go through these types of areas, and maybe Yuri Bezmenov is just making the same exact analysis based off of that. Okay. But once again, elections exist, but they're not really competitive. We already know who's going to win them. Okay. Obviously, there's the Red Scare. There's a lot of comics that were fueled through this. We went through this witch hunt in America, and we were afraid that our democracy was going to be destroyed from the inside from these communists, sleeper agents, or these traitors within our own country. Okay. At the same time, we're in the midst of the Cold War and the world wars, and it was all a battle between democracy and communism. It was just two the two were not seeing eye to eye. They are conflicting forms of government and conflicting ideologies. Okay. Now, the nomenclatura. Okay. This is going to be party approved staff of all key positions. You flood your universities, your media, your military, your economy. They're all on the same page. They are there spreading propaganda. Okay. Once you are aligned with this elite group, this party membership, it leads to your career advancement and material benefits. So only a specific group is going to benefit from this. And this creates this co-opted, loyal, elite oligarchy that we're discussing. Okay. So like I wouldn't be able to teach in a communist country unless I were going to submit to all of the ideas that they're validating. Okay. Now, if they're paying good amount, I might actually, this is capitalism in me, I might go and take that shit. Okay. Realistically, I wouldn't. It would be very hard for me to approve this. But let's say this was happening. This happens in communist regimes. Let's say America's communist. Okay. They would be flooding every single community college, every university, every think tank, all the research, all the hospitals, every single position that you can think of that is important. They will fill it with someone who is going to sell this idea. Now, they're selling an idea where they're lying, and they're the only ones benefiting from this system. Okay. That is propaganda. Okay. But this is just creates this elitist group. Okay. Now, personality, cults, and ideology. There's a really cool picture of Vladimir Lenin. Okay. Communism is usually functions like a secular religion, and these personality cults are reinforced through loyalty and legitimacy. Okay. It is very cult like. Okay. Obviously, we're talking about elite groups working together, and they're working together to maintain power. Okay. Now, terror repression is the next thing. Okay. So, under people like Joseph Stalin and Mao, you see cultural revolutions. Students, primarily, people who are educated and going against this system by realizing that it is either outdated or that it is unfair. Okay. And these countries do their best to do what? Suppress this and evoke fear within their government so people do not speak out against the government or try to uphold some type of revolution. Okay. Now, some important figures in communism. Obviously, Karl Marx, the founder of the modern communist theory. Okay. We have Vladimir Lenin, who was pictured. Okay. Vanguard theory, the Russian Revolution, Joseph Stalin, industrialization, terror, Eastern European expansion, Mao Zedong, peasant revolution, cultural revolution on China, Deng Xiaoping, okay, or Deng Xiaoping, okay, economic reforms and repression as well, okay. Then we have Fidel Castro, or the more modern or closer to our history, the Cuban Revolution defended socialism, okay, and then Mikhail Gorbachev, okay, the collapse of the USSR. And then obviously we could probably maybe throw Yuri Bezmenov because he gives us a really good video interview. And by the way, moved to America after the war. Okay, so remember when we defeated communism, we ended the war, we win the Cold War, we win the World War II, all those communist scientists moved to America, or a good amount of them. Okay, so that's another story. There's a lot of theories on that and what they were testing and what they were doing, but it's kind of cool to see this list right here. Okay. Obviously, the Cold War is a big thing. Did we land on the moon? Was sports becoming a bigger thing because people were becoming more identified with their nation? Because remember, it was a battle between who does it better. Does democracy lead to better life expectancy and a more civilized society, or is it these communist countries? Obviously, in America, we like to sell you the idea that democracy is best. We won all these gold medals. We set off the bombs, and um, we we nuked the country. We landed on the moon. Okay, we advanced our military, whatever it is. We were everything was a competition to us. Okay. By the way, I had a whole professor said this was the last time that America was truly united with one another. Okay. Even as the other time besides that was like 9/11's probably been the most recent. But now whenever we go into some type of conflict, we see people on both sides. This was like unanimous. Everyone was America, America first. We're against communism. Anyone who threatens any values of democracy, we're all on board. With 9/11, we found a common enemy. We were like, hey, well, it's going to be Muslim peoples or in the Middle East. Okay. I think my professors at the time when I was going to Fresno State 10 years ago had said the only way that we can become united as a nation is if we went through another Cold War. And he actually believed that it would be us against China this time. I kind of question it though. I kind of question because I don't know if everyone here in America is actually proud to be on board with that. Like, there's people that probably support socialist and communist policies within our country. Okay, so I don't know if we'd be 100% on board, or I'm not saying they were 100% on board back then, but it was almost unanimous that everyone was in agreement with one another. So the reason I say this too is even if we look at the Winter Olympics, we had Alyssa Liu. Her father's Chinese born, flees communist China, was actually a part of one of those revolutionaries, come to America and becomes assimilates with our country and loves America. His daughter goes and represents America in the Olympics. Then we have the other figure skater. I forgot her name. They're both from the Bay Area, by the way. Both live there. Instead of participating for America, she goes on and decides to participate for China. They also cut her a fat check, so understandable. But it just shows that maybe they might not align with American values. Okay, obviously Alyssa Liu and her family do, but maybe not the other skaters either. I want to say her mom was a professor as well, so maybe it was her growing up in a liberal institution where she believed that communist policies actually work. Okay, usually communism just gets flooded. Like young people believe it works, and my stepdad always has this theory. He says that people believe communism or all this like tax redistribution works when they don't have a real job. When you get your first real job and you see money coming out of your check, you're gonna become capitalist really quick. You're gonna be like, yeah, fuck equality. Where's my money at? Government wasn't with me when I was working this shift. Government, hey, Donald Trump didn't help me make this video. Gavin Newsom didn't purchase my PC. If anything, he made it more expensive for me to buy this. Okay, so those are just things that you'll think of as you get older. Okay, but once again, if you're well off though, you might not. You might not. You might not care. You might not be thinking of equality if you're well off. Okay, because you're doing good yourself. Okay, now but typically a lot of instructors, especially in the arts area, tend to uh, maybe they're more likely to align with this. Once again, I'm just being prejudiced. These are stereotypes, but most of the time they're true. Your ag business, your finance guys, though, capitalists for the most part. Okay, and then me, communism will never fucking work. Remember that. I think I told you guys that in a previous chapter, but I just want to solidify that. I believe that it will never work. In a perfect world, it does. Perfect world where there's no diversity that exists and everyone it is a small group of people only way. But regardless though, economic principles. Okay, your markets and property are going to be absorbed by the state. I want to say that we discussed this before. Your economy is just going to be one giant firm. There's no profit, no competition, no bankruptcy or unemployment. State provides everything. Okay, so you're living and dying by the state here. Okay, now central planning problems. Okay, it's impossible to plan goods. We see an example your textbook gives with the USSR. Small errors can lead to massive ripple effects because, once again, you are putting yourself in this box. Okay, there's no incentive for you guys to go out there and drive to want to innovate and get better. So it leads to poor quality or low productivity. Okay, and then famine and death is something that people face. Okay, you're not producing enough goods, or if you are producing enough goods, we got to make sure they're being redistributed properly. We have seen that these countries don't know how to redistribute things the best. And the elites like to absorb as much as they can because they need to make sure they have full bellies first before you guys get a crumb. Okay. Um, Obviously Mao's famous quote is better to let half the people die so the other half can eat, rather than try and feed everybody. We don't think like that here in America. Yeah, we're in democracies. So why do they fail? Okay. Over centralization, lack of innovation, no competition, chronic shortages, and bureaucratic overload. Okay. Not saying that democracies don't also face some of these same issues, but at least we have a choice, or we have the illusion of the choice. Okay. So, um, the collapse of communism. Okay. Stagnation when it comes to the economy, planning failures, rise of dissatisfaction. Let's go ahead and keep moving forward. Now, transition. Okay. They're starting to reintroduce markets, private property competition. There's mixed outcomes. Okay. Do we have like um they've become liberal democracies. Some of them have become authoritarian. Russia, China, Vietnam, those liberal democracies, Poland and the Czech Republic. Now, remember, weak institutions are going to lead to this corruption, these oligarchies that we discussed on some of the previous slides. Okay, and that's pretty much it. I know I was kind of rushing through at the end. It's because I was just starting to repeat myself, so it wasn't really nothing too much new in here. But remember, the United States will always be better. Okay, I know that moon landing picture might be fake. I know our Freedom Bird might not be our Freedom Bird's pretty cool. I know we're not always the best at basketball, at least right now in the current state. A lot of the better players are international right now, but and we're the only ones willing to drop the nuke, so maybe we're just inhumane. But we won the Cold War. We're undefeated in world wars. We're maybe not undefeated in wars because we're just spending a bunch of money, and I don't want to go on a rant now. So we got this video under 25 minutes, which is nice. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the chapter, and I will see you guys in the next one. Okay, make sure we're working on our chapter quizzes, and make sure we're working on the project for this class. Okay, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I appreciate you guys. I will see you guys in the next one.